Hey everyone, this is Heather and Jenny with Surviving Darkness, and this is episode 11.
We've had a few people reach out to us since we've been doing all these different episodes and just basically apologizing for not being there for us and not being able to help us. But we didn't really let anybody know anything, so I don't know that they could really help us. And this isn't really so much to make people feel guilty.
Right.
It's more giving people the opportunity to feel not alone and able to talk about the things they've gone through is our purpose. We really don't want anybody to feel guilty about anything that's happened and them not getting us out of the situation.
Yeah.
But we've had people just ask some questions and give us things to think about that we hadn't thought about before, like when we talked about the tapes and stuff, if maybe they were being used in other ways other than just as bribery or blackmail or whatever, if they would have possibly been sold or whatever.
And it's even like, I don't know how you took it, but it was almost like,
were we being
sold, and things like that didn't happen when, you didn't, I'm not saying they didn't happen. They were not as prevalent as they are now about
right.
So,
but it made us think.
Yeah.
It made me think. I mean, because the one person would always bring a 6-pack of beer.
Mm-hmm.
Or a 12-pack of beer. That it was almost as if alcohol was always brought.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I can't say no and I can't say yes. I don't know either way, but that wasn't a direction that we had even thought about.
No.
So maybe us putting stuff out there gives other people, gives them the opportunity to provide feedback. Could it have been this and could it have been that, and things that we hadn't even thought about.
Yeah.
And that angle hadn't even come to our minds.
Yeah, it gave us a different
perspective.
I guess insight. Yeah. And it makes us sick to think about things like that, but at the same time, anything was possible. And that's what we both said was, you know what? We have no idea.
I'm thankful that this happened during a time that there was no internet.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
That would have been really bad.
Yeah.
I mean, the pictures and stuff like that and cassette tapes and stuff like that was bad enough.
Yeah, and that just makes me think, how everything we went through was horrific enough without, being subjected to that. We were subjected to enough.
Right.
Like we've said with the critiquing and having to do things a certain way, but, knowing that there was a possibility that other people heard it or, I don't even know how. That just makes me, I can't even think of what I'm trying to say. How do you approach somebody and be like, oh, do you want to hear this? Or, it just makes me sick.
I don't even know that you would have to approach people and say, hey, do you want to hear this? It was almost as if anybody of that mindset was brought to the house anyway.
Yeah. Yes.
So who knows how it would have even been introduced or discussed or anything like that. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I guess you can look at it that way too. If people are bringing something to you and in return they're getting something, then isn't that sort of selling?
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't,
not monetarily, but you know,
trading goods.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yes. And like you said, we didn't think about this at all. It never crossed either one of our minds about
right
anything like that. So,
and even just that thought, trading goods, that just makes you sort of sick at your stomach.
Mm-hmm. And when we hear, if I hear something about that right now in present day, it makes me sick.
Yeah.
To hear about people going through things like that, little, kids that have gone through things like that, women who have prostituted out their own kids and things. And then you realize, you know what, that we very well could have been living that and not have known it.
Not even realized what was going on, right?
And, you know, and it happens.
Right.
So, again, we had somebody else today say, well, what about your mom? How did she, you know, did she know anything about anything? Or how did she not bring this up or whatever? And we just keep saying the same thing. We only know part of what she went through. And maybe sometime we'll know more, but, you know, only when she's ready to talk about it. But this person also said too, and it was a family member, she said, now it makes sense to me why you all were never allowed to go anywhere. Why you were never allowed to date. And I didn't say that to you earlier, but that was our conversation that we had. She said, and it makes sense. She said, I always ask my husband why he thought you girls couldn't go to prom. You weren't allowed to go to whatever it was, you know. And she said, now it makes sense because he didn't want you around any other guys. That's exactly what it was. It was nothing but jealousy. And, you know, even living that, sometimes I know I felt like it was just him being really, really strict. And I've even said, I am thankful that part of me is thankful that he did keep us from doing some things because we didn't end up, you know, pregnant at 17 years old. But at the same time, it could have been a much worse situation if we did end up pregnant at 17 years old because it...
Right. It would. It just wouldn't have been pretty.
Yeah, exactly. You know, so... And it's still just, I can't even hardly think about how a parent can be jealous of their kid, you know, I mean, like of them wanting to be with, you know, have a boyfriend or a girlfriend or whatever. It blows my mind that is just how sick.
I think a lot of it
think.
is still the control thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think everything that we went through, the root of it was control.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, we might have I don't know, it's someone talking to us other than him. Yeah. We might have someone who notices. The more you're around people, the more people notice things. Mm-hmm. So if we had a boyfriend, they might notice something's not right.
And, you know, I had a girl friend who would always come stay over at the house, and I was allowed to go stay at her house all the time. But that was okay. But I wonder what made him feel like I wouldn't talk about it to that person or to their family members when they were really good people. You know, what made that situation okay? You know, I mean, it's things like that I've wondered too. There's no rhyme or reason for that, you know. She never knew anything. Right. I never told anybody.
Right.
But if we weren't allowed to go all these other places, you know, what made that okay? Or was it just a...
But didn't he know the dad very well?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's why that comfort that he's not going to believe the stuff you say because he knows him.
Yeah. And because that had happened before with another dad.
Right.
Yeah. So that's possible.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't have to worry about it. They know me.
Mm-hmm.
They know that if they say something that they're not going to believe them because they know me.
Yeah, that's true. Yes.
So that sort of leads into one of the questions that I thought about and was just going to ask you. When you actually started dating, did you feel awkward or scared being alone with someone?
Being alone, yes. And I think that a lot of that was because of things that have been kind of drilled in our head about what could happen. Like we said, the one man's brothers, you never knew where they were going to be or whatever. And then it was this thing could take over whoever you were around and all this other stuff. So technically, I guess you would say on a regular basis, we weren't raped, but we were molested and
forced.
Yes, and forced to do stuff.
Just not being held down and beat doesn't really constitute rape as far as I'm concerned. I think that anything that you're forced to do.
Right.
So I consider it, yes, it was, because we were forced to do that.
Right. So in a one-on-one situation in a car with a guy, yes, I was nervous about that for a couple reasons, because there were, like, I went to prom a junior year with a really good friend. No, I was never worried about that, because I knew him and I knew I didn't have any doubts about anything with him. But other times, yes, I didn't feel comfortable. It took me a little while to be okay to be in a car with somebody by ourselves.
Right.
Because you didn't know what could happen.
Right.
And it was even, like I said, in your head, well, this thing could take over anybody, and you don't know what can happen, so, or it could take over you like it had done in the house, and you don't know what you're going to do because it's done that with you before. You've come in and done things that you don't even remember doing,
if that even happened.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
But yeah, I get what you're saying, that you don't know what might come in and take control of the situation.
Yeah.
Not who, but a what.
Yes.
So yeah, my problem was I was so socially awkward, and still I still have issues with that. I'm not good at starting conversations. I can talk when someone talks to me, but to just start a conversation and feel comfortable with that is very hard for me.
And then one of the things that stuck in my mind, and it still does, was you had gone on the date with the one guy who you came very close to being, what do you say, being a statistic of date rape?
Yeah.
And that was stuck in my head too, because it was, well, look what happened.
Yeah.
And so that was something that was in my head, because you were made an example.
And okay, that was the one that supposedly had sexually assaulted another coworker.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Is that the one that you're talking about? I'm thinking that's the one that I was looking for a lamp or something to knock him in the head with, because I was that scared that it seemed like it was like that.
Yes, that yes. It was, inevitable, yes. That it was going to happen. Yes. Yes.
And that was used against me as, you would see, that's why you don't put yourself in those situations.
Mm-hmm. And I knew that it was used against you, because I remember these fights. I know that I would always be in my room a lot of times during this time, and you probably didn't think that I paid attention or anything, but I did. And that's why some of this stuff is probably kind of surprising to you, because you may not have even known that I knew about stuff.
It is, but I don't think that you know the follow-up to that. That later on I had to contact that person who came to the house. I had to do stuff with him and have him admit that he had done stuff to this other girl and to myself. And I don't think that you or Mom, either one, know that the follow-up. No one knows the follow-up.
No. Mm-hmm.
So I went through this situation with this guy where I was scared to death that mm-hmm. I was going to get hurt. Mm-hmm. And then I had to contact this guy later on. and have him come to the house and then record things with this guy and have him say or try to get him to admit that he had assaulted this other girl that he worked with. Why? It wasn't going anywhere.
No.
It wasn't going to the cops. It wasn't, I don't know why. I don't know the reason. Like you said,
because it was used to make you feel stupid. Like, you should have just listened to what he had to say anyway. It was more control. And to make us, that's what was done. Feel inferior to his brain.
But why would you put your daughter back in the situation that she had so much fear and something that had scarred her already and put her alone with that person again?
So he could say, I told you so. That's why.
But the next one, it had to be consensual. I had to do that in order to get this big confession that was going nowhere. The confession was going nowhere. What good was it on a tape? He didn't say he did it. That one I can't even comprehend. Yeah. I can't even comprehend the reasoning behind that.
But the things that you went through were, like, I could hear the arguments. I knew all about that stuff. What you were so stupid to let happen. But no, I didn't know the follow-up of other things too. Just like the one that, you had to write the letter and tell him how you felt and all this other stuff. I didn't know any about that stuff. But it was used against you, but drilled into my head. Well, look and see what happened. You know what I mean? This is right. What happened. And therefore, you have to be really, really careful, because if not, then this is going to happen to you just the same as she let it happen to her when I told her not to.
But then bring the same person back to the house.
And then, so when I was in a car alone with a person, or on a date alone with a person, which I didn't get to do very often at all. Like, I think I went on 2 dates before I got married the first time. That was it, like, period. And so, but because of what you were made to do and go through, those circumstances were drilled into my head. Oh, you got to be very, very careful, because this is what can happen.
Right.
And when you went to college and we said that, he was scared or whatever about you being down there, it was like, oh, well, what if something happens and she's with somebody alone and, we're not there. I'm not there to protect her or anything like that, Well, that could happen anywhere.
I don't feel that I was protected at home.
No, not at all. You weren't. No. And you were better off away from home. Like we've talked before, you were. But at home, it was terrible, because he was doing nothing but drinking that whole entire time. He and Mom were fighting, and he even walked into my room when he was drunk one evening and said, your mom tells me that I should leave. What do you think? And I said, I'm just done. I'm done with all of the fighting. I'm done with everything that is going on right now. I'm done. And I don't care what the outcome of that has to be. I'm done. And that's what I said. And then, Mom was made to go down there and pick you up and bring you back home. It wasn't, she didn't even have like a choice, really, to be like, no, hold up. Let her spend some time down there away from us and figure things out for herself. No, that was not even an option. It wasn't.
And then to have to go and say, I have to withdraw because my dad says I have to come back home.
Mm-hmm.
There were so many things, like even when I was doing like my field work for the occupational therapy, I was 22, 23 years old, and even had like someone ask, are you only going into this field because your dad wants you to? I mean, that's how warped it was, that people who don't even really know us could tell that it was still a control thing, which I don't know why that comment, other than the fact that the guy worked at the same place that Dad worked at. I don't know, because I did not go into that for any reason other than I wanted to.
Right.
But it was, I don't know. It may be I was so quiet, and people are uncomfortable around quiet people. But I was beat down mentally, emotionally beat down. I was scared around people I didn't know. I didn't trust anybody.
And we talk about that too with like our different personalities, and neither one of us is right or neither, or wrong. It's just how we are. And I think that was a lot of it too, was because you had had so many things happen to you for such a long time without any help, without any backup or anything like that, because you'd reached out for help and then you were made to lie and say that nothing happened. So from 13 years old, you were already trained to divert any attention away from the situation and not speak about anything at all. And so I didn't speak, like, run my mouth back a lot. And we weren't allowed, like, period. Not just we weren't allowed to, we were scared to. Because
I think I got by with a little bit more than you did as far as running the mouth back. But I was also going through a little bit more than what you were too.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that had anything to do with it. I mean, at the time, I didn't know that you were going through anything at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I got by with just a little bit more, but not.
And I guess I was a little more rebellious when it came to, like, well, I'm still going to do this. I found a way to do it. Like, I snuck out with one of my friends. I didn't sneak out of the house, because I knew that I would get caught there, but we snuck out of her house. So, and I don't know how to explain what I'm trying to say. I think that because of the circumstances and because of yours and his, I don't want to say warped relationship, because it wasn't on your part. It was his obsession. That's what it was. It wasn't your dependence on him at all. But you two were together more often. He always had you going in the car with him, running around, cruising town, whatever, things like that, and we know now what things were going on and everything. I didn't really know at that point what was going on until I started having to go through the riding around and, showing things. And so at that point, it just seemed to everybody else like you were daddy's girl and you were just spending a lot of time with him. And, there was a difference being made because you had cars, 3 different cars bought for you and all of this other stuff. And I had to pay for my first car and everything like that. And it wasn't even like I was mad over anything. It didn't matter to me. I kind of felt like if I have to spend time with him to get that stuff, this is what I'm
right.
being honest, because if I had to spend time with him to get that stuff, I didn't care if I got nothing.
Right.
And you felt the same way I did, but you didn't have a choice in the matter.
Right.
And it's just strange to me, I guess maybe because he had you where he wanted you, that I wasn't put in that same situation.
Right.
As far as having to be there with him all the time.
Right.
So, and like whenever I played college ball and we traveled and everything, it was with a team, but there was still things that I feel like had it been you wouldn't have been able to go traveling.
Probably not.
Yeah. Because we went to Florida as a team.
That would have happened.
Yeah. And that's what I mean. Like,
and I don't know if it was him or that presence, seeing as to how everywhere I've gone, it's gone too.
Mm-hmm.
If that had a lot to do with why it was so attached to me and so much was isolated to me.
Mm-hmm. It could be. Yeah.
If it pushed him more to keep me under the thumb for whatever reason, whatever its obsession was with me too, I don't know. It was weird because he would talk about how that demonic presence was like in love with me, which is so weird because the demonic presence don't feel love.
Right.
It wasn't in love with me.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
Obsessed, like you say, is more of the...
Yeah, and I don't know what the deal was.
Right.
And like another thing like how we coped with the stuff that was going on, because we couldn't talk to each other about the things that were going on.
Mm-hmm.
And like I would put my feelings out in poetry. I wrote poems all the time to try to get how I was feeling out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't really talk to either people outside the home either.
Mm-hmm.
So mine was more staying busy, being outside, playing volleyball, being outside pitching at a drum or whatever out of a dryer, anything. 4 cinder blocks on the building, just anything to keep my mind off of stuff. And that sort of helped me, because I was a fast pitcher, get the aggression out. Because I would slam that ball into that building.
And that's funny, like you're laughing at that, but people even talked about us being different on the softball field. And I feel like I was a catcher. Therefore,
You was mean.
Yeah. And I even had a friend's dad that would call me Bulldog. And he was like, you come out of there like you're going to hurt somebody. And I think that we never did anything on purpose to anybody. No. Like, I didn't like just haul off and hit somebody with the glove and, or whatever.
I didn't pitch a ball into anybody on purpose.
But there were things that we did. And like you say, even putting ourselves and throwing ourselves into sports, and even just playing volleyball with our friends and stuff around there, we still played
aggressively.
100%. Yeah.
Everything we did aggressively.
Yes.
We did it technically. We didn't do it like, I guess if you were playing basketball, we didn't foul all the time.
Right.
We did what we had to do within those limits, but we pushed ourselves just a little bit more. Mm-hmm. And I think that was getting that aggression out.
And we always had chores to do, so we'd get those done, and then we were outside and we were doing whatever outside, away from being in the house. And I think anything that was not around him.
Right. I think it's odd too that our personalities were so different. You were more outgoing and you let people close. Me, I don't even know where the term came from or why I was called that, but they would call me like the ice princess, because I didn't let anybody close. Mm-hmm. It was like, you come at me like you're going to flirt or anything, I would shoot you down in a heartbeat. Which
is how you dealt with it, keeping people away. Mine was, if you act like this, and I wasn't putting on a front, but at the same time, I guess I kind of was, because if you act like this, then people don't suspect anything. If you act like everything's good, you're laughing and joking all the time with everything and talking to people, they're never going to suspect that anything at all was going on at home.
I was more of a no nonsense. Mm-hmm. Just don't come at me.
Right.
Just don't.
Yeah.
I want nothing to do with you. I didn't give anybody any kind of false hope. I gave them no hope.
Right.
If I wasn't interested in any way, shape, or form, I didn't care to let you know. I didn't care if I hurt your feelings.
Right.
I'm not interested in you. Stay away from me. And some of those people, though, I think I got that vibe from them.
Right.
That they
weren't good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it was just an automatic. I almost like, without coming out and saying, I see you.
Yeah.
I came out and said, I see you. I know what you're about. Step away.
I thought about this the other day, and I guess I'm kind of changing the subject just a little bit. We were talking about our ages when things happened. And so this has come to my mind too a couple times, but I haven't talked about it on here because I'd forgotten about it. The summer that everything started with me was the first summer that I ever really showed interest in a guy. Like, I guess you could say I was starting to become a teenager, and I'd gone, to stay at our cousin's house, and there was a guy down there that was older than me, and he was, I guess you'd say, my first kiss. Mm-hmm. And when Dad found out about everything, it was, I mean, I was
World War III.
Yeah, and I was a terrible person, and how in the world could I go and act like this and everything like that? And you would have thought that I had done all kinds of stuff, and it was, a kiss.
Everything was blown out of proportion.
Yes, yes. But to me, that was when he realized that I had that I was starting to become interested in guys. You know what I mean? That it wasn't just a little boyfriend in 5th or 6th grade. This was something that was starting to be different. And I feel like that's the reason that everything started, because it started not even 2 weeks after he found out about this other guy.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And so I feel like it was, whatever it was, had to be there and had to have been there, because I did hear things outside of the room. When I said, like, I heard the multiple voices sounded like a congregation of people, that happened about 2 weeks after everything had happened, when I went and stayed with our cousins. So there was definitely something there that was causing the situation to happen. But was it going hand in hand with him being jealous, and kind of making this rear up more, like quicker than what it would have? I don't know. It's just, I don't know that it's coincidental that I started showing interest in guys as a boyfriend at, like I said, the summer after my 6th grade year, which would have put me around 12, and then for this to start happening.
Right. Yeah.
It was almost like, well, okay, I'm going to stop this because I have to be the first of everything.
And I got to be in control.
Yes. And we've talked about the firsts of everything.
Right.
Everything.
Right.
And without going into any more detail than that, that was how things were done.
Right. Yeah. And I think that mine was more small things leading up than what yours
I don't remember,
was.
and that's what we've talked about, is I don't remember mine being... I remember a little bit of touching and things like that, but, and maybe I've just blocked a lot of it out, but I just remember...
But there was a whole lot of, like, scare things to get me dependent on him for protection.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was, this thing wants this done, this thing wants that done, this thing wants this.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a lot of, like, scare things to let me know that thing was there.
Mm-hmm.
To where it could be turned that that's what this thing wants done. Mm-hmm. It's not that I want to do this. This thing is forcing this to happen.
Yeah.
So with you, I think that the kinks were sort of worked out. Mm-hmm. If that makes sense. I'm gonna push the limits a little bit more with her and see how far I get, and make sure that she's not going anywhere and saying anything, to where there was sort of a comfort when it came to you, because there was already a couple years of practice with me,
right,
before anything started with you.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I had already reached out for help before anything started with you, and that got shut down.
Right.
So it was already out there that I was a liar.
Yeah. And so if anything else, came out, then it would be the same way. You know?
So there didn't have to be a lead up so much with you, because the lead up was with me.
And we talked that there was so many similarities in things, but then there were so many differences. Like, I had the people on the porch, also
right.
while I laid on the couch in the living room. Well, there's somebody out there and they're watching and this and that. But when it was approached to me, I knew the people on the porch.
I didn't have
you
any
didn't
idea
know who it was.
I just saw, like, cigarettes light up.
But I never saw them.
Like they were out there smoking a cigarette. That's what I could see.
Who was out there?
Yeah.
And so that's, it's strange, the differences, because, yes, I still knew that there was absolutely something else, an entity there.
Right.
Like, I was laying on the living room and on the mattress, and Dad was asleep on the couch, and I felt something hit me in the head, and I raised up immediately, and it was a cough syrup bottle, and it had like literally, it didn't just bump me. It had hit me in the head.
Right.
And I raised up and like to look at him and be like, what in the world are you doing? You know what I mean? Like, what did you do that for? And there, sound asleep. Like it was no, and he didn't have time to
act like he was asleep.
There was no way that he had time to do that and then get back situated in the position that he was. There's no way. So yeah, there were things that were said and done, and then like, I don't know if you remember, everybody used to record tapes, you know, you record your music on tapes, and you know, and we even had, when we lived in the second house, not the 2-story house that everything started in, but the second house, that we would play back the tapes of, like, just to listen to our music of what we had recorded off the radio, and there were voices that were coming through in the background.
Right.
And that's not something that anybody can make happen when those tapes hadn't even left our room.
And we would even get like the phone calls too.
Mm-hmm.
How the landlines, you could make the phone ring into the house, from the house,
mm-hmm.
and there would be stuff on the other line,
mm-hmm.
and stuff too.
Yes.
So we knew that there was definitely something there.
Yeah.
I mean, there was some of the stuff that we saw that was obvious.
Yes.
It was obvious that there was something, but it's hard to discriminate or distinguish what was spiritual and what was physical.
Yes.
One.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And to differentiate, like you're saying, between, sometimes there was no doubt that it was
That
not.
it was demonic.
Yes, absolutely. And then there were other times, and maybe that's how Satan works with, or the demonic works is, and I know to put questions in your head and things and make you wonder about things, but there were also times, like you say, that it just had to be an evil person.
Right.
Not an evil thing, an
Right.
evil person.
Right.
That was allowing this stuff to happen.
I think it's odd though that we get on here and we'll talk about something and it'll just click, like the follow-up of the one thing, and it's like we sit here and we'll talk to each other even though it's like on the podcast, and we're like, oh, that don't make sense now.
Mm-hmm.
Why was that?
Mm-hmm.
Like the one person that I had talked about that I really liked and had to write the letter to and had to do stuff with and this, that, and the other. And I probably wouldn't have.
Mm-hmm.
I would have just left it alone, because to me that's degrading,
mm-hmm.
to have to beg someone to want to be
Right.
around you or with you.
Right.
And then to find out that he had been threatened. But then later on, I had to meet with him and one of his friends and was supposed to have done stuff with both of them.
Mm-hmm.
And the alcohol was provided by my dad. Once again,
Mm-hmm.
get drunk and, go be with both of them.
Mm-hmm.
But it just so happened that I said the wrong thing at the wrong time, according to Dad and that thing. But to me, I said the right thing at the right time. So, I mean, I asked, is this all you want from me?
Mm-hmm.
And that stopped everything. So then I was in trouble because I asked that question.
Right.
And stopped everything when that is not what I was supposed to go there for.
And you as a person needed to know those answers.
Right.
But however, you were supposed to follow directions and let whatever was supposed to happen.
Yeah. Right.
And, shame
because-
on you
yes.
for diverting everything that was going to take place. Shame
by
on you for
asking
that.
the wrong question at
Yeah.
the wrong time, according to them. But it was the right question for me. I needed to know, is this all that
Right.
you want?
Yeah. And it stopped something that would have been
yeah.
torturous for you.
And for that, and that person was like, no, I actually want a relationship with you.
mm-hmm.
I really do like you, but your dad doesn't really want me around you. Although your dad just dropped you off here.
Right. Mm-hmm.
it was confusing for everybody around.
Right.
And I couldn't say, oh yeah, he just wanted me to come here because this demonic thing said I need to do this and this and this and this. And yeah, I mean, your dad dropped you off here, although he's threatened to kill me and doesn't want me around you, but he just dropped you off here and he even sent alcohol.
Right. Yes.
So it's like, what in the world?
And it makes us wonder how, and some people may say we're not even close to normal, but how in the world do we even live a kind of normal life and not have just pure craziness in our heads?
Well, I mean, there's some craziness in my head.
Yeah, well, you know what I mean. Yes.
Yeah, I wonder. It had to have been God. God had to have been there and protected our minds the whole time, because everything was warped.
Yes.
It's like, don't go around him, go around him. Don't have anything to do with him, have something to do with him. And then on his end, it's stay away from my daughter. I'm dropping my daughter off. But stay away from my daughter. I'm going to kill you, but I'm going to drop her off. I mean, it really.
It's so strange to me, like, even to hear you talking about this, because this was not what I went through. It was, no, you are not allowed to do this. That's it. Not allowed to see them. Not allowed to talk to them. No contact whatsoever. Done.
And then I had that stalking incident. And I don't know who that was. Mm-hmm. I mean, I had sexual magazine subscription sent to my house. Mm-hmm. I had books of all these different toys or whatever sent to my house, and they were in my name, my address. And then I had someone call me and say, hey, did you get your gifts? Mm-hmm. And so I was scared to death to even go anywhere. I didn't know who was stalking me. I didn't know who was sending this stuff. I still don't know that anybody was really out there that sent that stuff, or if that was another scare tactic to make me scared to death to even go anywhere without an adult with me, because I didn't feel safe going out anywhere with someone my own age. I didn't know who this was. I didn't know if they would try to kill me. Mm-hmm. I didn't know anything. So it was almost another, I'm going to add this to the pot and have her even more scared to even go out anywhere and have to depend on me even more for protection. So I don't know if there was a stalker out there. Mm-hmm. I don't know. And I mean, we had caller ID, but I answered the phone or before it even showed up on the caller ID. I wasn't expecting someone to call and I say, hey, did you get your gifts?
Right. Yeah.
And it wasn't a voice I recognized. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I don't know. I just know that I was scared to death and always looking over my shoulder. I mean, not only for the brothers, but then for whoever was stalking me. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was a constant fear. Mm-hmm. I mean, it ain't no wonder that I was so cold with people. I didn't know who was stalking me.
That's true.
Just stay away. Just step back. I don't know. I there's something I don't like about you. Mm-hmm. I don't want anybody near me. I just don't.
Right. Yes.
And even like my first husband, the first date I went out with him, I mean, I would say like physically the attraction wasn't so much there. He wasn't the type that I normally would have liked. So I always say that, I had my purse in my lap. I had a long leather coat on. And a lot of it was, and I really didn't look at him when we were talking. I was like, well, if I'm going to like him, I'm going to like him for his personality. But part of it too was I didn't know him that well. Mm-hmm. And that was my safety. Let's have my coat on, my purse in my lap, and just don't even look that way.
Right.
And I'll feel safe. Ask me a question, I'll give you an answer. Mm-hmm. Other than that, we're not going to really talk a whole lot.
Right.
But then we rode around and talked for hours, but he was a talker.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And he sort of got me out of that shell.
Yeah.
I actually started feeling comfortable around him. So,
well, and you would ask what I felt like, when I started dating or whatever. I'd been married and then gotten divorced, and my husband now, we didn't know each other when we started talking or dating. And so, because of the things that had happened in the past, he came to pick me up for our first date, I guess, if you will, and I wouldn't go out with him. We came to your house
Right.
the first few times because
Right.
I was like, no, I do not know you, because we were set up blindly. I did not know him, and I was not going to be in a vehicle by myself anywhere with him until
Right.
I knew a little bit more about him.
Right.
So, yeah, I guess with looking back at that, yeah, even though I had already been on my own and everything, yeah, it did still affect me.
Right.
And, even now I think that if I was by myself alone with somebody, with a guy.
That's what I was going to say. I don't like to be alone.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not even so much that, I mean, we're married women and it's just don't seem appropriate to be alone with a man. But if we're in a room full of people and like other people walk out of the room and we're still left in the room with a man, it's still uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Even though there's nothing at all out of the way being said, nothing out of the way being done. It's just the fact that we're in the same room.
Yes.
And it can be like an open living room. It don't matter. There can be people right there in the kitchen that can see everything that's going on in there. We're just in close proximity. And that is uncomfortable.
And I know that affects me even now, like with my job. Like I had talked the other day about that door being locked, and the door wasn't shut. It was just the handle that was locked, but it was what controlled that door, and I could not get that handle unlocked. And it's obviously started to make me kind of panic. So that was something that affected me, because at some point I might be locked in that room, you know? So you had to, because of your job, had to be alone, I'm assuming, in houses sometimes.
Yes.
And not every person that you were around was completely incapacitated or disabled to the point that they could not do something. So I'm sure that made you
very uncomfortable.
Yes.
And some people, I mean, they were nice.
Right.
I guess with having gone through that, you sort of can gauge people and you can sort of tell whether you need to put that wall up of don't mess with me because this ain't going to work out good for you. Or you can let your guard down and be cordial. And I mean, there were times I wouldn't even cut up with my patients.
Right.
I mean, I was comfortable enough because I didn't want to go into someone's house and make them uncomfortable in their own home.
Right.
So I had to go out of my shell to try to make sure that they didn't feel uncomfortable in their own home. But there were some people that were inappropriate, so you had to shut it down real quick. You just had to let them know, no, we're not going to go there. We're not going to talk like that. We're not going to do that because I don't have to stay here and do this. I'm here to help you, but if you're going to be inappropriate, then I'm going to walk out the door, and you're not going to get the services that you need from me.
And the you 20 years ago may not have had that gumption to do that then.
No, I wouldn't have.
Yeah.
No. I remember like when I first started in working in the nursing home setting, and if I had people that were inappropriate and stuff, I never spoke up to them or anything. I just dealt with it.
Yeah.
Because I didn't feel like I had the security to stand up for myself. I had to deal with this all my life. It was just part of life. So yeah, it took years to get the backbone to be like, no, we're not going to do this. Nah. You can respect me and I can respect you. But if you're going to disrespect me, I'm not coming back, and you're not going to get the therapy that you need from me.
Right. I was just thinking about something too. With, I always had guy friends. That was, for one thing, Dad couldn't stand that, but because he always thought that there was something else going on with all, and they were all just friends. That's all it was, But I also think that I'm going to laugh because I had the nickname Diesel because I traded punches with these guys and just was like one of the guys. But I guess, for one, that was also my way of saying, don't mess with me, because I will do whatever I have to do to take up for myself, and you won't get by with whatever,
I'm sitting here chuckling because I'm like, you had all these guy friends, and I didn't have so much guy friends because I thought I was more of a guy and tougher than they were. So I was like, just go on.
Yeah.
Just go on. Because, I would beat you down in a heartbeat, and I don't want to listen to your teenage, I'm so tough, because you're not. Bye.
Yeah. But it wasn't like that. Like with me, it was just, we just goofed off. Even like,
Right.
And that just happened. One of them was goofing off and walked by and just barely punched me. And I turned around and just barely punched him back, but he was like, ow.
But that was our thing.
It was.
That's what, with our uncles and everything, it was trade punches. You get knocked across the room and you'd come back for more.
Yeah.
Is that all you got?
But I do think, too, that was kind of like, it was as friends and joking and everything like that, too. But it was also, yeah, I'm okay if if the people outside of my guy friend group think that, yeah, I might have muscles, because then I don't have to worry about you messing with me,
Right.
Maybe that was my little bit of control outside of the house,
Maybe.
So
I don't know. I didn't have a lot of guy friends. Mm-hmm. I didn't have a lot of friends. I had a lot of acquaintances from playing sports and stuff, but I didn't have a lot of people I was close to. I still don't have a lot of people that I'm close to. It seems like the people that I've let get close have somehow hurt me or something, and it's hard for me to get close to anybody anymore. Mm-hmm. I feel safe with, like, you and Mom. Y'all are my safe place.
Right. Yeah.
And I feel safe with my husband, and kids and stuff, but it's about it.
Well, that's what I had said today with the family member that I was with. We were talking just about how different our personalities are. Not bad, nothing was being said negatively about anybody. It was just speaking how differently we had been affected by the things we had gone through. And it was said, yeah, she's just not as open. And I said today, and this family member is one that just found out about things, about a year ago? Mm-hmm. And I told her about the past and that you had reached out to get help. And then, other people were like, oh, well, don't hug her, or don't act like this, because, then she might say something or whatever. And you just, unfortunately, built up that wall as to not be open with people because of circumstances that had happened, and she didn't know that part. Right. So now she understands more of why you aren't as affectionate and are a little more closed off, and that's something that us talking about everything with the podcast,
right,
and then actually opening up about things these past few years have helped, because family members might not have known. They would have never known what had gone on.
Right. And why I was offish, mm-hmm. that it wasn't anything towards anybody. It's not anything towards them.
Right.
That I am more reserved, more closed off. And it's with everybody. Mm-hmm. I'm just now getting to where I even let you hug me without just tapping you on the back.
I know. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't care.
I'm just a back tapper.
Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, you're going to hug me. I don't care. Whether you like it or not, it's going to happen.
But I am getting better at that. And it's not as awkward for me now. I mean, I'm almost 50 years old and it's taken me that long, but it isn't as awkward for me now. I'm okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
But before it was, why are you in my personal space and why are you touching me?
Right.
And that's what it felt like. I was like, all of a sudden you're touching me.
And something I've noticed with myself in the past few years is I am getting to be more of the stay at home, protect my little bubble, because I have, a little
Yeah.
in my bubble now.
Right.
And so even I just don't get around as many people as I used to. And I think that is because subconsciously I'm trying to keep my little safe.
Right. And that's what it was like for me with my boys.
Mm-hmm.
It was, I think I thought more ahead.
Mm-hmm.
And I was always, I don't want to say I was always thinking that the negative was going to happen, but the possibility was there.
Mm-hmm.
So I always wanted to make sure that they were protected beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, I don't want to say I was overprotective.
Mm-hmm.
I may have been somewhat, but it was because I knew that there were things that could happen.
Yeah.
And there's some things that I found out that I could do everything in my power to protect them. And there's some things you can't protect your kids from. Yeah. Lies. You can't protect your kids from someone else's lies.
Evil people.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter what, and that's how the enemy gets you too.
Yeah.
The one thing that you tried so hard for so many years to protect your kids from is the one thing that it used to almost destroy me, because I was close.
Mm-hmm.
I was close. That was the time that I was very close.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's bad when your kids are calling your sister and saying, hide the guns, hide your medicine, we're bringing her over. You can decide what you want to do with her, whether she needs to go to Bar H or whether she's good. But that was the one thing that it used to try to break me.
Mm-hmm.
But I came back stronger with more compassion for other people and everything. So the one thing that it used to try to break me just gave me more strength to fight harder.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know if I was going to make it that night. I didn't know. I mean, when it takes you 15 minutes to figure out how to get your shoes that were on the other side of the room to put them on your feet, because the thought process isn't there, and you're just done. You're telling your child you're going to have to fight on your own because I'm done. And I was done that night.
Right.
I was done.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I mean, even so much as them saying, well, God's with you. And I was like, I don't even want to hear about it. If God was with me, this wouldn't be happening.
Right.
And that's how far gone I was that night, because that's not me talking.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But I got sleep that night, and I got up the next morning, and I put my praise and worship music on, and I got out of that. I was like, no. And I reached for God even in those darkest times.
That's what I was going to say, is it was, nope, I'm not taking you. Right now, I'm not taking you and having you committed. I'm just gonna medicate you and let you sleep. And then we're gonna go from there.
And that's your husband, who's always cool, calm, and collective, looks at you and says, is she okay?
Mm-hmm.
Are you sure she's all right? I don't know what I was doing
to
make him think that I wasn't.
I don't remember either. I just know that
I couldn't quit crying. I know that much.
Yep.
And I was just not, I don't think I was mentally there. I know I was there, but I don't know that I was there. There was something I was doing, because he's so calm. And if he's asking, are you sure she's okay?
Right.
There was something. There was definitely something. But I mean, God has always pulled us out. And
it was almost like I knew that it was going to be okay, because it was like, well, we'll see. I'm going to leave you here tonight. Even speaking to your kids, I was like, I'm going to leave her here tonight. We're here. And I slept in bed beside of you to make sure that nothing happened, and prayed over you and everything while you were sleeping. And it was just like, almost like, okay, just let her be. And, that's kind of what I feel like, is I never felt like it was a situation that could not be handled.
Right.
That you needed to be taken somewhere different.
Right.
So I feel like God
and
gave me that knowledge,
To be honest, I was at that point. Y'all could have taken me wherever and I would have known, and I really wouldn't have cared.
Yeah.
I didn't care. I didn't care.
And that is where I was that whole summer, when people ask, how do you deal with things, or how did you deal with things then? Well, I kind of didn't. I stayed in my room to myself. I didn't care one way or the other. When I was 14, 15 years old. And that's how it was. Like, if I made it, okay. If I didn't, so be it.
Right.
So.
And it was like all those years I had put into protecting them from any kind of accusations, anything like that. And for it to bite me that hard, I was like, just like when I found out about you. Yeah. I went through all that for this, to find out this, for this to happen. And it just broke me. I think all the things that I had gone through over the years, and then that was like the straw.
Right.
And I Satan probably thought he had me too, because I was done. I was done. But God, he said no.
And that's how we made it through. We talk about, some of the questions we were kind of talking about today were, how did you deal with things? And we may not have been in church all the time like we are now, and may not have had God as prevalent in our lives then, but God was always there in some fashion. We were in church, like we said, on Sunday mornings, and there were things that we still did with churches, and we just knew that God was always in our lives.
His presence was always there. We knew that when things were bad, we could still reach up. He was still there. His hand was still there. It was just not even so much as, I almost feel like even if we didn't go to church, and if we didn't read the Bible, which I didn't read it in the house, but I did read it outside. But you always knew. You just knew he was there. His presence was there to help us get through everything. I mean, even the nights that were horrible, I would still lay in the bed, and I won't sit here and say that I didn't question God. Why? Yeah. Why did you let this happen? Why won't you make it stop? Because I did. But I knew that I was going to be okay. I was going to survive it. I didn't realize that it was going to be to share like this. Right. Or to be used in a way to help other people like that. But we survived. And
we've had people, we just even had one open up to us on Saturday about
going through things too.
Yes, with numerous family members.
Right.
And she said she's 70 years old and has just started to confront things. And when she was listening to us, she was breaking down, and listening to everything, but it was helping her. And that's all that we have wanted to do with this, is to put our story out there and to show people that they have the strength to make it through and to survive, and you can still talk about it. And
that's cathartic. Is that the word, cathartic?
Cathartic.
Yeah. It just didn't sound right.
Yes.
To be able to talk about it, because it's one of those things that you just don't, just keep it to yourself. Just be quiet about it. It's ugly and all of this. And those are the things that people have put on people who have been abused, is that stigma that, you know, you're dirty.
Yeah.
And don't talk about that. And this, that, and the other, almost like it's your fault that this stuff has happened to you and all, that people haven't. But
and you're going to tarnish that name, you know what I mean? Like
right.
your family name or whatever, you know, just don't do that because people don't talk about that. Well, that's why people get by with it, because they don't.
And that's why there's so much mental illness too, because people have kept that in and they haven't shared and they haven't talked about, and they've let the enemy just beat them up. You're dirty. You just need to be by yourself. You've let this happen and this has happened to you, and no one's going to want to be around you if they know this and all that. And they allow that to keep them in those chains.
Yes.
Keep them bound. And being able to talk about it not only helps us get past it, and it helps us to be able to help others too, by talking about it, letting them know you're not alone. And it's okay. It's okay to talk about it.
And we seriously do thank God for keeping us out of the addictions, out of, you know, the drugs, the, you know, like the self-destruction that a lot of people do and turn to because of the things that they've gone through, and they don't know how to handle it. And thank God we've had ways to handle it.
Right. And just talking about it gives people that avenue to open up themselves. And it has definitely helped.
Yes.
To be able to get it out there.
And like we said, even with just our family members, even other family members of ours, we've all been able to talk about everything that we've gone through with each other. And some of us would not have talked about that.
And it's to let people know that if you've been in that situation, and this is coming from someone who carried it for years, to tell them that the shame and the guilt that you're carrying is not yours to carry. You did not abuse yourself. Someone did that to you. That is their shame and their guilt to carry. And it took me years to quit carrying that. Because it's almost like it is put on you. But it isn't my shame and it isn't my guilt, because it's just not mine to carry. It's theirs.
Right.
They should feel the shame. They should feel the guilt, not me.
Yeah, because we did not do that to ourselves nor anybody else.
And I just feel like people need to hear that. It's not your shame and it's not your guilt. Let the person that it belongs to carry that. Just lay it down. It's not yours.
Yeah. That's exactly right.
Well, I guess we can just go ahead and finish up with this episode. And we had planned on putting like a thing on Facebook about with like questions and stuff. But if you go to the website, it'll have it on there. And one of us may this week wind up copying that link and putting it on Facebook. I think Jenny's going to do it, and she thinks I'm going to do it. Nobody does it. Yeah. But anyway, just any questions that you have, any comments that you want to make on the things that we're saying. If you want to share anything, I mean, you can go on the website and you can hit the email thing and it'll take you straight to us. You got the Facebook, and you can go on Messenger and then shoot us a message, just however. Yeah. And then there's the questions on there. Just some feedback would be good. Just let us know what you like about what we're doing, what you don't like about what we're doing. And
if there is anything, you know, some people are like, well, I don't know if they would want to talk about that or not. You know, if just ask, you know, it's not, we can either choose to discuss it or say that's not something we're ready to yet. You know, I mean, so it's anything you can put on there. And we're, you know, we like to be like interactive with people. you know, like you say, if you have any questions or anything, just let us know.
Yeah, we definitely won't be offended.
No.
And ways to help. And I mean, anything that we can do that can improve.
Yes. And it does not matter age. you know, I mean,
right.
That's what we're saying. This lady, I don't know if she would have never talked to us about this before if we hadn't done this podcast.
Right.
And thank goodness we have this opportunity, and she felt open enough to tell us, you know, hey, I went through this, and you know, thank you all for doing what you're doing, because I feel like I have someone who's gone through what I've gone through.
Right.
So
we're on, or you can you can find us at survivingdarkness.com and
survivingdarknesspodcast.com.
survivingdarknesspodcast.com.
Yes.
And it'll take you to all the links that we're on, and we will get back on here and talk to you next week.